Oh yeah, I got that. Everybody remembers that song, but they don't remember what else is there. Yeah, I got
Greetings, this is Delaware County Sheriff candidate Hoss Turlington. As most of you know, I'm running on a transparency and anti-corruption platform. Police abuses against Delaware County citizens have become the norm. Cover-ups and secrecy have also become the norm. We've had 6 sheriffs in the last 18 months. One after another, they're forced to resign, and the public is never told why. This is insulting, and taxpayers should not tolerate this. I promised transparency, so I need to tell you about Sheriff candidate Beck's latest shenanigans. As soon as I announced my candidacy for sheriff, candidate Beck began a disinformation campaign that I was not eligible to run for sheriff because I was not CLEET certified. CLEET is the Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training, an Oklahoma agency, state level. Because Beck was certified as a law enforcement officer through CLEET, he started rumors that I was not qualified to run for sheriff because I obtained my certification through the federal government. The truth is, the statutes say nothing about CLEET being a prerequisite for sheriff candidate, and specifically authorize federal and military law enforcement certification. One of Beck's deputies swore to one of my supporters, a prominent local businessman, that the word military was not in the sheriff eligibility statutes. Beck's campaign went so far as to tell the county Republican chairman that I wasn't qualified to run for sheriff because I hadn't had state-level CLEET training. Without consulting an attorney beforehand, without asking me directly about my qualifications, Beck hand-scribbled this challenge of eligibility and turned it into the electoral board at the last minute of the last day permitted to file a protest. And by last minute, I actually mean they were already closed. So we don't know how that worked, but if you look at the lower left-hand corner of the petition, you can see the timestamp. As you can see, it says 3 o'clock. Here's a screenshot from the Delaware County Electoral Board webpage. As you can see, closing time is 3 o'clock. At any rate, he submitted his petition. Note, the reason he was challenging my eligibility on the petition is different from what he told the Delaware County Republican chairman and so many other Delaware County voters. His petition doesn't even mention CLEET. Here's Title 19, Section 510 of the Oklahoma Statutes, County Sheriff Qualifications, which I will link to in the description of this video. Here's my DD-214, Certificate of Discharge, showing 4 years law enforcement in the military, which you can see meets the statutory requirement for both time and experience. Then, last Friday, April 22nd, the Grove Sun came out with a well-written article about the challenge, except Beck had added a new reason why I wasn't eligible. After the article quotes the definition of peace officer in the Sheriff Qualifications statute, it continues, quote, because the definition includes enforcing laws of this state, which of course is Oklahoma, or political subdivision, Beck believes that military experience does not fulfill this requirement. So, because the statute does authorize military and federal law enforcement experience, Beck isn't arguing that I'm wrong, but the statute itself is wrong. The statute describes several types of law enforcement experience, any of which would qualify an officer for running for sheriff. These various experiences include federal, military, state, and local law enforcement. Candidate Beck fails to articulate what he means But the only reasonable inference is that Beck believes candidates must have all of these experiences, as opposed to any of these experiences. Obviously, this is not the case, as twice previously elected Sheriff Harlan Moore had neither military law enforcement experience nor Oklahoma law enforcement experience. Prior to running for Delaware County Sheriff, Harlan Moore's only law enforcement experience was in the state of Colorado. More importantly, Beck himself does not have federal or military law enforcement experience. So the key point is simple. There has to be one standard for every candidate. Beck cannot rationally argue that I have to have all of these experiences, but he has to have only one out of the 4 qualifying experiences. Hopefully the board decides to apply one standard across the board for all candidates, because none of the candidates have all 4 types of experience. To be clear, I'm not saying Beck is unqualified. I'm saying he only meets one of the 4 qualifying experiences, and I have 2 of the 4, military and federal. The statute clearly authorizes military and federal experience, as well as enforcing the laws of Oklahoma or her political subdivisions. Candidate Beck knows this. Candidate Beck knows that I am far more qualified for the position of sheriff than he is. Beck knows that not only will he be out of the job when I'm sheriff, but that dirty cops will soon be a thing of the past in Delaware County, and he will be unable to find employment anywhere in Delaware County. These are the actions of a cowardly, scared man who is reaching for straws to try to discredit his opponents any way he can. All candidate Beck had to do was pick up his phone and contact me if he had a question. As a matter of fact, Ray Thomas, another sheriff's candidate, did exactly that today, like any other Oklahoma man would. I met Ray in Grove and showed him my eligibility. Prior to running for sheriff, I considered running for state senate. Hogan Apperson, a state senate candidate whose family owns a large ranch close to my farm, called and asked to meet me. We met at the creek and talked for a couple hours. We had a lot in common. Hogan's family had also been here since it was Indian territory, and Hogan, like me, was anti-corruption and a reform candidate. Hogan was concerned that he and I would split the vote, and another candidate, a cop, who is currently under investigation for corruption, would end up winning. This is just common decency. This is how gentlemen take care of problems. They don't cower behind rumors and secrecy and file cheap shot complaints when they could just confront a man and tell him their concerns to his face. So once again, you have a local law enforcement officer, this time an acting sheriff, who either doesn't understand the law or is actively lying about it. Or perhaps it's an attempt at veteran discrimination. But what we do know is that Sheriff Beck, like all dirty cops, is terrified that I will become sheriff and shine a spotlight on him and other local law enforcement, which is why he is trying to convince people I can't be sheriff. If you want a sheriff who is not afraid of anyone, who's not afraid to confront anybody about anything ever, then vote for me, Hoss Turlington. Thank you for watching. See you at the primaries on June 28th, and God bless.